Okay, welcome back to Case Studies. I'm here with Chad Willardson, who is a local legend. If you're on LinkedIn or if you're on any sort of social platform, he delivers value-added content almost on a daily basis and has kind of, become one of the people that I go to for guidance.
Thank you.
And
Wow.
which I really, I love people that spread the good news. I love people that spread good vibes. I love people that add value consistently. And that's one of the things that draws me towards you. The other one, I have people that I really respect, kind of almost the highest level of respect. And, for the nature of kind of confidentiality, I won't say their names, but they really respect you and they're clients of yours.
Yeah.
You have a really successful wealth management business that you built kind of from the ground up. And so anyway, just so excited to have you here and kind of hear your story.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words. I'm happy to be here. I mean, like I've told you already off camera, like I've seen the people you've brought on this show, and it was a real honor that you even thought of me, considered me. I was like, wow, that's a big deal.
Well, and we don't know each other well. And so I think that's most of the people that I have brought on, I do know well.
Right.
But I know a lot of people who know you well and respect you, which kind of bridges a gap for me.
Right.
And so for me, I'm just curious. It's kind of going in and saying, how did you build the business that you built? And then two, kind of, what is the philosophy or what makes you tick? Because there's a motor that just watching from the outside looking in, it's like it's moving.
Yeah.
There is a motor and it's a drive and it's a hustle and it's a passion that's kind of contagious. And it draws me towards you.
Thank you. I love to see people step outside their comfort zones and push for big growth. Nothing gets me more fired up than helping someone, giving them permission, unlocking that permission, liberating them to just go for something unconventional and massive, and then helping them get there. Like, funny story, a couple years ago in Kauai, my wife and I were south in Poipu. There's a great cliff jumping spot, and we were going to walk up there. We love jumping off. Our kids jump off, and there was this lady, probably in her 20s, and she said, she was kind of standing at the bottom of the walk hike up, and I said, are you going to go up? And she's like, I don't know, I've never been. And I was like, come with me and my wife. We'll take you up there and we'll help you out. You're going to be fine. She's like, I'm not a great swimmer. I said, we'll swim back with you. It'll be fine. We get up to the top. It's probably about, 4 o'clock, 4:30. We get up to the top. And of course, you feel a lot of courage until you get up to the top and you're looking over. And she gets up to the top. She's looking over and she's like, I can't do this. I just can't. And she backs up. And there's kind of a line building up because she had been standing there a while. And I was like, okay, I just got to help this person get the confidence to go for it. So I said, my wife's going to jump in. She's a great swimmer. She's going to tread water. I'll be behind you. We'll help you jump, and then I'll jump in, and then we'll swim you in. And she's like, okay. And she goes back up there, looks over the edge. I can't do this. Goes back. And we do this little thing for a while. My wife's like, all right, I'm just going to jump in, and then I'll give her a little boost, and then she'll go in. So my wife jumps in, starts treading water. And I'm talking to her and trying to coach her off the ledge. Meanwhile, people are coming up, swimming, jumping off, swimming around. Like, it's just going and going and going. And it's taken a long time. Like, I'm talking her through it.
And this is just a stranger.
Yeah. Never met her. But I'm like, we can't leave her up here. Like, her friends are waiting down at the beach with their cameras. And I'm like, we got to just
help her.
It's probably been 30, 40 minutes. Yeah. I'm like, we got to get her to jump off. Meanwhile, my wife is treading water still this whole time.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where she breaks down in tears. And she says, I'm a failure. I'm a quitter. I got all the way to the end of Fire Academy, to the final physical fitness test. I got scared and I quit. I always do this. I'm never going to amount to anything. I'm a quitter. And I was like, oh, she's crying. I'm emotional. And I'm like, I don't care how long this takes. I can't leave her up here. I can't jump in and I can't walk back down. She can't retreat.
Yo.
Because I'm going to be thinking about this forever.
Yo.
And so I'm like thinking in my head, what else can I say? What else can I say? And we go and we talk through it. We're working on it. And I know it's been a long time, but I don't have any idea. I don't wear an Apple Watch. I'm like, I have no idea what time it is. And I'm like, what is it going to take for us to jump off together? And she goes, you're going to have to push me. And I'm like, it's like a 40-foot jump. My first thought was, man, that would have been a lot easier at the very beginning. I would have just pushed you off. But she goes, let's go to the edge. And I kind of just give her a little nudge, and then I jump in at the same time. Now, truth be told, it was a little bit of a kind of a side belly flop. It was not a good look. I was a little worried, but I jumped in. We swam her back to shore. She hugged my wife and hugged me for what felt like minutes, but it was probably 30 seconds. Got a picture with us. She was from Mexico City. She contacted us on social media. We get back to the hotel, and Casey, it had been 3 hours. I think back and I'm like, my wife, freezing cold and exhausted. She was my wife is the real hero in the story, not me. She was treading water for 3 hours. I was up there trying to coach this girl to go jump off for 3 hours.
Is it almost like timeless?
It was timeless.
Almost like just like a flow state, like this is a moment?
This is a moment. I'm like, I knew it took a while, and I thought maybe it was 45 minutes. But we were like late to the banquet dinner. We were supposed to shower, get all dressed formal, go to this banquet dinner. We were totally late. My wife could her legs were jello. I'm like, I can't believe we just did that. But I got a message maybe 6 months later from her and her friend on social media. Her friend was like watching from the sand, and they were like, that changed this girl's life. She believes she can do anything now. And for me, it was totally worth it. And like, that's a story where I look back and I say, that gets me more excited than so many other things, because someone didn't believe they could do something. And I somehow helped them and encouraged them with the support of my wife to get them to do it. And now maybe that unlocked a different mindset for their future.
I mean, like, there's so many things about that story that fire me up. And like, we could like literally spend this entire podcast breaking it down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the fundamentals. Because I think a lot of this stuff kind of happens by accident.
It does.
Or it happens by chance, but it doesn't need to. Like there's actually like there's sequence and there's principles that kind of build on that, and kind of what you're describing. Like, think of your own life, and you think of who's the leader that I had that believed at me at a point when I didn't believe in myself. Who was the leader? And all of us, like, I go back to a high school football coach. I go back to Todd Peterson, you know, when I'm 24 years old. I go back to, there's just these people that, like Gary Stevenson, you know, he was my rich dad growing up.
Oh, that's awesome.
And just having mentors or having people that are maybe ahead in the journey.
Right.
That believe in you more, that believe in yourself, and give you permission to try, and how it is life-changing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And cliff jumping is so symbolic. Like, our family is like Big Lake Powell family.
Oh, that's awesome.
And every year you go cliff jumping. And every year there's this spectrum of the lower cliff, and then the medium cliff, and the higher cliff. And heights are so emotional and personal to different people. Some people, it's like effortless. You go to the top spot and you're flipping off of it. And for others, like the small cliff, but it is symbolic of fear. Yeah. And it is symbolic of other things that hold you back. And it's so amazing that she vocalized life.
Yes.
This was symbolic of life, and getting to a point where fear got too much and you have a chance to move forward or you have a chance to retreat.
Yes.
And her habits or rituals up until that point had been do 95% of the work, 98% of the work, but not break through. Yep. And I think those things, you know, are the good stuff in life. Like, that is like ultimately, like, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to remember too many things but those human interactions when you blessed people, you know, and when you believed in them. And so it's just,
those breakthrough moments.
That's the gold.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there's anything better in life.
For sure.
Anyway, that fires me up. I don't even know how we started there. Jeez.
I mean, that's that story. I just feel like those types of moments, that's where I feel like I'm in my genius zone, if you will, helping someone figure out a way to mentally break through and go for something.
Who's the person for you or the people for you?
So that's a good question. I think that my wife asked me that recently. She's like, man, you mentor and lead a lot of people. Who's your mentor and leader? Who was it when you were, growing up? And I feel like it was books. It was like books and videos and stuff that I don't feel like I had someone maybe in person.
Okay.
That like was personally mentoring me. It was
but
more
who were
like
the thought leaders. Who were
I loved listening to, Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy and all these people who talked about how to think. My mom I'm very much like my mom. I'm a mama's boy. I'm the oldest of 4. I got 3 younger sisters. And my mom she's a rock. She just has the right answer no matter the situation. And so there were many gut check points in my life where I was like, Mom, this is what I'm thinking. Like, what do you think? And even when I was leaving Merrill Lynch to start my own business, Pacific Capital, it was seen as a very risky decision. Most of the people I talked to didn't think it was a good idea. I was doing great. I had a corner office. I had a 7-figure income. I was 31 years old, and it seemed like everything was just laid out for this perfect career there, and I wasn't happy. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I want to leave. I need to be on my own, independent, an entrepreneur. I can't work here anymore. And everyone was just like, are you sure? Like, this doesn't sound like the smart, prudent path. And my mom was just like, I've known this since you were a kid. Like, you have this in your DNA. There's no entrepreneurs really in my family. Like, I'm the oddball. But my mom was like, this is a breeze. Like, you got this. You'll figure it out.
But your mom for sure is that person.
For sure.
Yeah. Like I'm just listening to this saying like, she never doubted.
No,
like,
never
I
doubted.
don't know if you ever doubted, but she never doubted. Like,
she just reinforces, and I would say like, Mom, like, what do you think I should do in this situation? And she just always has the right answer.
Yeah.
So
who else?
Is
it coaches?
I had an incredible basketball coach in high school that was he only was my coach my senior year. We had a coach for my freshman to junior year that was more like Bobby Knight.
Hard.
Ruthless.
Yeah.
So hard that we broke the all-time winning record for our high school, and like a 40-year high school record. We had an incredible team, one of the top teams in California, and he still got fired because he was
that hard.
He was rough.
Yeah.
So we got a new coach my senior year, and I became really close with him. He's since passed away, but he was somebody that really taught leadership, and this is Southern California, and he was using, like, he was very much into the Bible, and he was using Bible verses at every practice, teaching principles. And he was more of like the John Wooden style.
Yeah.
Principles first and then skills later.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from him. He and I became really close. So
your leadership style more like his?
I would say so, yeah.
More like love, more,
I mean, I love with high expectations.
Yeah.
So same way I
or
lead
do you
the
think
kids.
It's a combo? You think
I think it has to be a combo?
Because I think about that. I don't know which one's right. And I've had coaches that are really hard.
Yeah.
But they're actually like the exact medicine that I needed, and bring me to tears.
Yeah.
But those tears created, muscle, right. Emotional muscle. Right. And I've got a daughter that she's at a competitive cheer gym.
Yeah.
That they're the number one gym in the country. Sheesh. Out of 4,000 or 5,000 gyms. It's in Linden, Utah.
Wow.
But their expectations are crazy. Like, I think anybody that looked at it with fresh eyes would say, that's way too much, But for them, it's the standard. And because it's the standard, they just get results that no one else gets. And I've seen my daughter's confidence. She's year 4. From the first year she got there, when she'd be breaking down and she'd be hesitant, to now, like, she's like fearless, and she shows up and you're just like, you're becoming like a force.
Yes.
And so, like, for me, like, my love for those coaches is immense.
Yes.
And they do love, like, they've got big hearts, and they're, you know, they love the kids, but they hold extremely high standards.
High standards.
Kobe
Bryant.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant and I got to know him a little bit because my daughter would play Gigi a lot in Southern California. We had our coach and Kobe knew each other. And so we would just match up a lot and play each other a lot.
Because your daughter, great player, college athlete, playing at BYU.
Correct.
And so she was elite. She was in the elite class of teams playing at that time.
And so she played the Mama Academy frequently. And it was kind of crazy because I grew up, you know, watching the Lakers, having season tickets as an adult now. But, like, I'm a big Kobe fan, big Lakers fan. And then suddenly, like, he's yelling at the ref saying my daughter fouled his daughter. And I'm like, this is surreal. Like, how are we in this situation? It's a Twilight Zone moment. But afterwards, after every game, you know, his daughter was a leading scorer. My daughter was a leading scorer. And we'd chat a little bit. And he told me that his club was invite only. And I think it was 3 hours practice a night, 6 nights a week. And there's I can't make it. We have a family trip next week. Like, this is a commitment. And he's okay if you don't want to join the Mom Academy. But if you want to join the Mom Academy,
those are the standards.
These are the standards.
Yeah.
And we're going to demand excellence. And so when we get to the games are going to be easy.
Yeah.
Because we've prepared so thoroughly, so diligently that you're going to show up and play a 1-hour game. Like, you have so much gas in the tank.
No, but those trade-offs are so profound. And I think if you believe that you can skip the price that has to be paid for success, and still get the same level of success, that's being naive. And that's not understanding how life works and how nature works and how principles operate.
And you wouldn't appreciate it if you did get the success without that price.
But I think there's, you know, a prevalent belief that's perpetuated that you can get wealth without work, that you can get, you know, results without the effort, that you can cut corners, that you can cram, that you can do the minimum amount of, you know, effort to get the maximum amount of gain. And it's just not true.
It's a social media fallacy. I think people see the outcomes and people fake it. You know, people are going to private jets and recording videos, like renting the jet for an hour and recording videos and pictures and posting it online, and it's not even real. You know? And so it's like everyone gets this fake idea that it's quick and easy. And so there's times where, like, my wife has reminded me, like, you need to tell people of your struggles and failures. Because it's easy for people to see on the outside and say, oh, this guy has a great life. Everything worked out perfectly. He doesn't make mistakes.
But let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, when did it not work?
Many times.
Like when did you say, this is my plan, this is what I'm gonna do, and it just crashed and burned? It just didn't go.
I mean, in the beginning, trying to find clients, I remember trying to find clients and saying, I'm only gonna work. I remember telling my manager, if I'm gonna hit these quota goals and keep a job at Merrill Lynch, like, I need to find bigger clients. And I was 23 years old, and I said, I'm only going to work with clients that invest over $100,000. And mind you, that was 22 years ago. And he's like, you have no chance. You're too young. No one's going to give you that kind of money. You need to take whatever client you can get. And I was like, well, he's the manager. He's the leader here in the office.
He should know.
Yeah, he knows better. But I was like, I was doing the math, and I'm like, I don't have enough time to meet my 18-month quota to keep a job if I'm taking every single person that walks through the door. Like, I have to have some minimum standard. And then 6 months of cold calling, going business to business, trying to do lunch seminars. Like, I'm writing on envelopes because I believe if you handwrite the envelope, people might open it. My wife is stamping it, and we're stuffing it all night, every night, sending out seminar invitations on my own dime. And I go to a lunch seminar, and there's one person, and I've got a table set up for 30, and it's humiliating. And I'm like, I got a PowerPoint presentation. There's one person, And the waiter's like, do you want to get started? And I'm like, this is a terrible feeling. You know, like I feel like I have completely failed. And it's like, how long am I going to have to do this? I'm going door to door businesses saying, hey, I'd love to talk to you as an entrepreneur about your wealth management needs, and cold calling. And I have no results for 6 months.
Zero.
I have no new accounts. And I'm like, my manager was right. Like, maybe I screw this up. And then I get a call back from someone I had cold called on my second day of work. And he goes, hey, I remember having a great conversation with you. I wasn't ready at the time, but I'm going to roll over my IRA. I'm retiring and I got $600,000, and I want you to be the guy. I know you're young, but I really liked your energy. I want you to be the guy to manage my money. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's like 6 clients of what my minimum standard was. And it worked. And so I'm going to keep grinding and hustling, and I'm going to raise my minimum $250,000 and see if I can just raise my standards. And then eventually I raised my standards to $1 million. And then it was 5 million. And then it was 10 million. And now we work with some really elite entrepreneurs, some of whom you know. And it's like,
I mean, you guys work with some of the most like successful people that,
yeah.
You know, for sure in like, you know, the Utah, and I know you're a Southern California firm, but you guys have deep Utah ties.
Yeah. We have some great clients up here. And we have a client whose their businesses just got valued at $2.85 billion, and they're selling a chunk and taking some money out, and it's probably happening in the next few months.
So cool.
And it's like, to be at those tables and to be on those calls and to have that experience, just looking back when I'm like knocking door to door in these dusty buildings and like stuffing envelopes and thinking like, how is this ever going to end? I don't want to do this forever. You know,
the humble beginnings are like the gold though. Like I think about, for me, and I remember driving across the country. I give my wife an engagement ring. I literally have like $300 net worth total. So I don't understand the concept of debt. So I'm like, okay, well, I got to buy a ring. So I got to get gas to Des Moines, Iowa. So she gets a $150 ring, and the rest. And I'm driving out there, and I just remember almost like your story of the person jumping off the cliff. There's this pit in my stomach where I'm like, this sounded so much better at Cafe Rio.
Right.
And now I'm driving through these cornfields, and I remember like the heart and just like crying in my car. But then you get a little bit of momentum. You get like a little taste of success that kind of keeps you going.
Just a spark.
And then there's a point where you like get some swagger, where you're like, I can do this, and I can not only do this, I can do this as well as anybody. And I think about how foundational, like the work that we do today isn't that much different than the work I was doing when I was knocking doors. It's a different customer, it's a different client, but the same scrap and hustle and tenacity. It's maybe a little more polished, but it's the same work.
It's the same,
you know what I mean?
Same principles. Yeah. You have to put in the effort.
And it's human to human.
Yep.
It's trying to add value. It's trying to solve problems. It's, you know, showing up with good energy and a good attitude. You know what I mean? It's being gracious when people aren't nice to you. It's the same stuff.
Yep.
You know, and I just think about, it's those humble beginnings. Like I'm trying to like picture you with one person at a seminar, and you're like, I'm embarrassed right now.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed for the person here because they're wondering why they're the only person. Yeah. And I'm embarrassed for me.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to go do my best, you know?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm just going to pull up a chair. We're not going to use that big giant PowerPoint slide presentation.
I was listening. Are you a big Jim Rohn fan?
Oh, yeah.
So I was listening to this old Jim Rohn audio over the weekend, and he's talking about this this preacher, and he goes into like this town and shows up to give a sermon, and only one person shows up. It's this old cowboy.
Oh no.
And so the preacher's embarrassed, and he's kind of bummed, and he asked the cowboy, he's like, well, hey, you know, you're the only person here, what should I do? And the cowboy's like, well, you know, if I had a horse that kind of came get some food and it was only one horse, I'd probably still feed it.
Right.
And so the preacher gets all fired up, and he just like puts his heart and his soul into, this one person. And then, he asked him at the end, he's like, hey, so what do you think? And he's like, well, if I had a horse that came to eat, I wouldn't dump the whole bag on it, And so it's kind of one of those things where you're like,
that's funny.
Just this process of, learning the dance and learning the art of what's too much and what's not enough, and, adding value. So you go, but it feels like, 6 months is a long time when nothing's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But in the whole scheme of things, it's not a long time.
No. It
feels like it kind of took off for you. And that once it started going, it kind of never stopped going. Was that kind of how, did the momentum just kind of never stop?
I feel like the momentum never stopped until I left and started over.
And then it was rebuilding.
And then I started over again. And that was the hard part. It was like, man, I had brought in hundreds of millions of dollars as a young kid, and I was now going to give all that up and start from scratch again. And I didn't have a big company name that was doing commercials on ESPN and NBC. So would people know who I am?
Yeah.
How would I build that credibility with people?
Yeah.
And so I did. I went through all the same uncertainty and fears and struggles, and hey, this is why you should choose me instead of working with the massive Wall Street banks. And here's what I can do differently. And so I went through that all again with more experience, wiser. And it was so fun to learn along the way and to I could create the business around the target client. And to me, that was
the customization.
Yeah, it was like, what do they want? And now I have the freedom to actually figure it out and do it.
For me, I've worked, I was at Morgan Stanley. I was at Goldman.
Yeah.
And
so,
yeah, they just weren't, I was a small fish in a big pond, and just the nature of them, they couldn't customize something for me in a very meaningful way. And so that there's a piece of that you kind of need to cherry pick the best things.
Correct.
But having the flexibility to actually go solve problems for clients,
to implement,
had to have been so refreshing.
It was I was so excited to come to work. It was I couldn't wait to go to work, and I hadn't felt that in a while. So I was like, what can we do? What can we create? If we meet someone and they have a new technology or a new idea, let's seriously consider it, and we can add it to what we provide. And eventually I was like, you know what? I'm getting people asking me about health and fitness or about travel. We should provide some services around that. The concierge travel services that I was getting from my assistants. I'm like, let's create a program that adds that to our client.
So cool.
So we have all kinds of
value added stuff.
Yeah, if you have a destination or a type of vacation you want to go with as a couple or a family, we got a full process, and we'll book it for you. And it's I don't see any other financial people doing that kind of stuff.
That's incredible.
So it's just building along the way and being able to innovate and be creative. And to me, it's fun.
Yeah. So talk to me about your marriage.
Yes.
On the outside looking in, it looks like you guys, one, work really hard at it, but two, have a really special marriage. Talk to me.
I want to hear what you think about that.
No,
why do you think that?
No, it's just from the outside looking in. You guys have beautiful family. I think it's 5 kids.
5 kids, yeah. 23 years married.
Even just that story of kind of you and your wife with the girl on the cliff.
Yeah.
And one, you guys being there together, going and having adventures together. But then two, both being committed to the process of serving, kind of having that shared vision or those shared values. And even going back to, and these are just things I'm gleaning from our conversation, you're starting your business and you guys are together filling, writing handwritten notes and doing stamps. And it feels like it's just been a team effort from day one,
For sure. Yeah. 23 years married. We were married young. I was 22. She just turned 20. And
babies.
Yeah, we were young. We met when she was 19. And we struggled, and I think about that a lot. We struggled in the beginning. Like we had good friends in Southern California that would say, hey, let's go to TGI Fridays. We're going to go on a group date, go to TGI Fridays and go to the movies. And I would be like, we can't afford that. We can't afford that, unfortunately. And sometimes when my friends found out, they're like, hey, I got you, man. Like, you'll pay it forward someday. We'll pay for you. They were a couple years older than me. And I was like, I'm not making enough in the early career at Merrill Lynch to have money to go.
Can't even do that.
Couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
I legitimately remember us buying these. I think they were called pastaroni, like these pastaroni boxes. And we were in an apartment and just stuffing those envelopes at night, making our homemade pasta. And I'm like, someday, like, we're going to do some cool stuff together. It's just not yet. And so
but she just believed.
She believed. She just believed.
Like,
she just says if Chad says he's going to do it, it's going to happen. And she just always has said that. So she's like, I just don't doubt. If you say you're going to do it, it'll happen.
How much
cool.
of a gift in your life has that been?
No, it's huge.
Just from just know that like the person you love believes in you.
I can't imagine. I did not understand the weight of that decision when I was 22 years old. How impactful having a spouse that is supportive, that is on board, that has big goals and dreams, like that wants more than just status quo or mediocrity. I didn't have that sense or that foresight, and I'm just grateful that it worked out because, who you marry is going to make a bigger impact on your career.
You think it's just like that's who you were, and so that you kind of attract what you are.
I think
both you guys kind of were attracted to kind of that vibe or that energy.
She's not a risk taker at all. So she certainly has more like a little bit of like, ooh, is that going to work out? And so I'm the one that says, don't worry about it. Like, I'll figure this out.
But there's a difference between like, I'm not a risk taker and I'm down to go on the journey with you. Like those are two different things, because I think I'm not a risk taker and we're not taking risk is way different than, hey, I'm not comfortable with this.
Right.
But I'm willing to lean in and let's go on this journey.
If you say it's going to work, I believe it's going to work.
Let's go on this journey together. And that's a big difference.
That's true. That's
kind of a like seminal difference. Like,
it is. Yeah.
The difference between doing it and not doing it.
That's right. She's willing to go when I say, let's go. And on the flip side, like, she absolutely pushes me out of my comfort zone with adventures and travel. And she's a great athlete.
But a lot of that stuff's her. So like the adventure side of it.
Because
that's the side I'm seeing that I'm like,
she's an adrenaline junkie.
Dude, how fun is that?
Oh, like, it's if we haven't gone somewhere in 2 weeks, she's like, are we just going to be sitting around? Like, what are we doing? And
she's driven like that.
Oh yeah. She's got to explore the world. She's got to explore everything. Like, we're going to Spain next week, and she zoomed in on a couple spots, and I saw like 50 little tags of something. I'm like, what are all those? Are those like restaurants? And she's like, no, those are the places I've tagged that we need to go see. And I'm like, oh my God.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it's fun though. It's fun to do life like that, because I don't care where we go per se. I'm going to have fun. I don't even have to pre-plan it. I'm going to go and figure it out and have fun. But she wants to research and find every cool spot to explore.
No, your wife sounds a lot like my wife. We're going to Kenya.
Oh, wow.
Next week. And literally, I don't know what time we're leaving.
There you go.
I don't know where we're staying.
Right.
All I know is that I'm going with my wife and my 3 kids.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm fired up and I'm going to have a great attitude. But she's
got it.
Every details, and same thing, like she's got the charity. We're going to go to this church and we're serving at this place and this is the resort. And, it's fun to do life with somebody that like loves the adventure.
Absolutely.
And so you guys start this journey, 23 years, married young, like we're coming up on 19 years.
There you go.
And what we found is like, we're the same people, but we're very different people. There's kind of different cycles along the way. Have you guys seen that? Have you guys seen that, like, different stages of the marriage? You know what I mean?
I think the biggest difference.
And how do you grow together?
Growing together. I think including your spouse in your growth matters a lot. So I try to bring her, and that's what you'll see on those posts. Like, I try to bring her to the things that I'm going to, where there's growth opportunities or conferences. If I'm speaking somewhere or I'm going to a conference, I really want her to come.
Yeah.
And I want her to meet people, and sometimes I've brought her on stage and she just like freaks out about that. But I'm like, I want her to experience it and to grow with together.
Yeah.
I don't want to just be out there on my own growing. And
But does she have that same type of drive? Does she love it the same way you love it?
She definitely doesn't. She definitely doesn't love the conferences as much as I do, and those like sitting in the sessions. So what she will do is she'll come and she'll get a taste and a flavor, and she'll be there if I'm speaking, and then she wants to go explore the city or wherever we are.
I think that
she gets her fill.
But I think it's important. I think it's like, you know what I mean? That my wife right now, she's just on this. So same thing. We got 5 kids.
Yep.
And something clicked. It was 2 or 3 years ago where she just like is like, I've got some big thing to do in the world, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And so she's been like just searching. And
that's
and for me, it fires me up.
Yeah.
And so it's any kind of direction that she starts moving, I'm just like, let's go, explore it, you know? And so she's doing her MBA up at BYU right now.
Really? That's cool.
But I see her growing, and it motivates me to go grow.
Yep.
But there was a lot of times along the way where the stuff that I'm like, hey, I'm going to this Tony Robbins event.
Yeah.
And she would come.
Yep.
But it wasn't number one for her. Like she was coming because she loves me.
Her. Exactly.
Yeah. And so I think it's that balance of like, you know, sometimes making the thing that's as important to your spouse as your spouse is kind of the difference between growing together and not growing together.
Well, and supporting each other's things, because like she doesn't love going to sports games, but I do.
You love it.
I love it. I mean, I love pro sports. She loves going to shows, Broadway plays. She loves going, obviously she loves the adventure trips, but like.
And do you love that stuff?
No,
like you don't?
I don't, but I'll go.
Yeah.
She won't take me every time. She wants to take friends and the kids and stuff like that. Yeah. But I'm like, if there's a big show and you really want me to go, like I'll go. And the same thing with like a Lakers game. You know, we've had season tickets for 15 years, and I'm like, hey, this is a big game. I want you to come with me. She's like, all right, let's go.
She's in.
But like, she just recently, a year and a half ago, she said, I think she's never done anything like even a 5K, like just never done races or anything.
She's a good athlete, right?
She's a great athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a 3-sport athlete in high school. And she goes, I want to try some like, she did like the Ragnars and the Tough Mudder stuff, but she goes, I want to try something bigger. I want to try a half Ironman. But she's like, I don't think I can. I don't have a bike. I don't bike much. And that's a lot of time for training. And I don't know so much. Like I've never done any of these things. And I was like, this sounded like that girl on the cliff. I'm like, let's just figure it out. I'm going to support you all. Let's go all in. So she last week, 2 weeks ago, she did her 4th half Ironman, and she beat her original half Ironman at the same location by almost an hour. And she did 6 hours and 11 minutes. And she's still like, I'm not a runner. I'm not much of a biker. She's a really good swimmer, but she's just grinding and training. She's training 3 to 6 hours a day. Like we get to a hotel at a resort. It's 9:00 at night. The pool is closed. And she sneaks out there in her cap and goggles and swims for an hour and a half. And then, so like her grind and dedication towards these triathlons inspires our whole family.
It's like symbolic.
It's
incredible.
Really is.
It has nothing to do with the triathlon. It has to do with striving.
Yeah,
to get
just
better.
striving for something.
And it signals.
Yeah.
It really does signal to everybody, like, you know, me and my wife, you know, my wife is for sure like the spiritual leader of our family. Like, you know, how would I even describe my spirituality? Like, I love my wife.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love God.
Yep.
But she like thrives on the structure.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, once a month for a long, long time, we go to the temple.
Yeah.
But it's 5:00 this morning.
Yep.
And she's like, hey, you know, are you in?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the last thing I want to go do, you know, like I want to get up and do my morning work out and but it's like, the answer is always yes. It's like, if this, you know,
but it matters to her.
Well, and it matters to me too. It matters to me too. But what matters equally as much to me is if she's asking, I'm a yes.
Yes.
Like
If she's saying, I want you to go with me,
then I'm like in, and I'm
yeah.
going to be in with a good attitude. And
Yep.
I'm, you know what I mean? I'm like, and we get up and we do it, and it's special. And we're together, and, you know, it's a great morning. And I think about, but it also signals to our kids, like,
That's
this
right.
matters to us.
That's right.
Like,
Yep.
we're up early doing this, and it matters. And
Yes.
we go to church every week, and it matters. And like, we're on vacation and we go, and it matters. And I'm like, I don't want to go when I'm on vacation. I
Yep.
want to sleep in, and like,
Yep.
but there's some stuff that, like, that signal, and I'm sure your wife at 9:00 in the pool
Yep.
doesn't want to go
Just
swim
wants,
that night.
a long flight. She just wants to just relax with the family,
Yeah,
but she's like, I gotta grind.
It signals to the rest of your kids, like, mom grinds and dad
Yes.
grinds,
Yep.
and that's what we do as our family.
That's what it means to be a Willardson.
This is who we
This
are.
is who we
yeah.
are.
No, it's so cool.
That's what I told the kids. So her last race was the Saturday of Mother's Day weekend, and it was in Florida. And I was like, all the kids, you guys are going to miss school. You might miss some stuff for the weekend, your activities, your tournaments, but everyone, we're all going to support mom for Mother's Day weekend. We're going to be there at the race, and this is her thing. Like, I get the spotlight way more than I need to. She doesn't. This is her thing. People are always like, why don't you do the Ironmans with her? I'm like, first of all, she'd probably kick my butt. And it would, I'm not an endurance athlete. I play basketball. But second of all, she needs something where she's on stage, and this is her thing, and we're all going to support her. So we flew out with all the kids, and them seeing mom grinding through like these hard struggles with thousands of people, and she was kicking butt. And my oldest son, Pierce, paced her and ran alongside her for the last 9 miles. So we had a golf cart, and we're cruising around, we're taking videos and pictures, we're cheering her on through all the spots. And I'm like, Pierce, dude, she's kind of slowing down. Either you want to pace her or I want to pace her. What are you going to do? And he's like, he jumps off the golf cart, goes alongside her, paces her for the last 9 miles. She breaks her record. And it was like,
dude, that gives me chills just listening to it.
It was awesome.
No, you're firing me up right now. You're touching on all the stuff that, like, matters to me. So I want to switch gears.
Yeah.
Talk to me about building wealth.
Okay.
So this is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. Think that it's a stewardship that everybody has, that sometimes we stick our head in the sand and we don't address.
Yep.
That this is actually something that I need to go spend the time and build this capability.
Yep.
And we kind of hope that it's going to work itself out in the future. And understanding how compounding works, and understanding how owning assets and inflation and this stuff works, you can't stick your head in the sand.
Yep.
Like, action is needed. Talk to me about your philosophy on one, building wealth, 2, building capabilities to build wealth. And then 3, like, what's it all about? Like, what's it all for? Like, when you're coaching people, you know, 1, kind of early kids starting their career, but then 2, you know, entrepreneurs that have done it, that have these established businesses. Talk to me about 1, how you think about it and how you build your own wealth. And then 2, like, how you help people in that journey.
I'm going to start with a common myth in my industry, which is diversification helps build wealth. And people always talk about diversifying your assets and asset allocation. You hear those phrases a lot. And diversification actually doesn't build wealth at all. Concentration builds wealth, and diversification preserves wealth.
Yep.
It keeps you wealthy. So building wealth comes from concentrating and focus. Typically the clients I work with, entrepreneurs, their concentration is on their business. The stuff that they're good at, they know they're good at, they're going to build a lot of value in their business, and eventually they'll be paid handsomely for that. I see a lot of people talk about wealth building, and they say, create multiple streams of income, diversify, and they try to do it too soon. You know, people are trying to own 50 different asset classes at a young age, and it's like,
without much money.
Yeah, without much money. With a lot of debt and without much money, and it's like you're not building anything.
Yeah.
So part of wealth building is building.
Yeah.
And that's going to take time. But the compound interest and the compound growth of the efforts in a business, or just the investing regularly and consistently, those are going to turn in, like, you're planting seeds to produce a massive tree that'll give you shade and fruit forever.
Yeah.
You can't plant seeds and have something start to grow, and then a storm comes and you need to rip out the tree because you're nervous, like, oh, there's no fruit. Oh, the leaves fell off. I'm going to pull the tree out now, and maybe I just plant it somewhere else. And people do that with investing.
All the time.
They're impatient.
Well, and they're
right?
kind of like inherently, all of us as humans, we're inherently emotional.
Yep.
And our tendency is to do the exact opposite
of what
thing we should do. Like, when things are crazy is actually the time we should be investing more.
Yep.
And definitely not selling.
Yep.
And when things are frothy and over the top is probably the time where we should be patient. And inherently we want to jump in because of the FOMO, you know what I mean? And so that it's interesting that you say that. Talk about concentration. When you're sitting down with an entrepreneur, and that person says, I've got $1,000 or I've got 10,000 or 100,000 or $1 million. Where are you coaching them to put their money? Are you saying, hey, invest in yourself, in your skills? Are you saying, hey, invest in your business? You know, is it, because when you say, hey, do it too early, it feels like in the early days, trade-offs are required. Like you can't do it all. So you kind of have to say, this is where I'm going to get my highest return to build. Yes.
I think for entrepreneurs, typically reinvesting in their business as they're growing, I mean, they're not going to get a better ROI going many other places. If they're building something that's actually working, it's going to work, then that's significantly a better option than trying to spread yourself too thin and become a real estate guru when you don't know what you're doing and you're trying to manage a business. Like, I think you need to focus on something. Investing for growth, that's something I always tell people. You have to invest for growth. The government is borrowing and spending and printing. And so inflation is worse than what it's being told to us as. Inflation is a big deal to me. Like, you have to be an investor. You can't leave your money on the sidelines. You can't have dusty money at the bank. If they're borrowing and spending, you need to be borrowing and investing.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you sit on the sidelines and you wait, and I see that happen with people who are really smart, like they're smart business people, but they have money just doing nothing. And I think of like that wealth building mentality. Would you hire a bunch of employees and sit them on the couch and say, just hang out there? I'll tell you when I need you, but I don't want you to start working for me yet. Like you guys just stay there, and maybe when things look calmer, then I'll have you start working for me. Like we would never do that, but that's what we do with our money. We have it sit and we tell it to wait.
Yeah.
But I think wealth building,
probably out of fear.
It is a lot of fear. Right? Yeah. It's just like, and a lot of that is money blueprints from childhood.
Yeah.
Your parents were talking about, turn the lights off, like hurry up. You think money grows on trees. We can't afford that. All those things you heard as a kid.
How do you help people rewrite that story? Because I see that all the time. Like I'll run into people that are like, they've made enough money for 10 lifetimes.
Yeah.
But they actually they live so far under their privileges.
They don't have that abundance.
Well, and they don't live like a beautiful life. Like they actually live in a tremendous amount of fear, a tremendous amount of scarcity, and they miss like the good. Like the money is a magnifier. It makes you more of what you are.
Right.
For good or for bad. But like, it's just a tool of production, but you have these old paradigms or like these blueprints, as you call them, that don't serve people very well. You know what I mean? Don't serve people to create wealth. But if they do go create wealth, definitely don't kind of serve them well to go live the most fulfilling life that you could go live.
We have a client who accumulated hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're so concerned about ruining their kids that they are going to give $0, not a penny, to the family when they pass away. And I was like, I understand the concern of ruining the next generation, but I think you're going to cause more problems by having them see all the things you've accumulated and giving not a penny. Like, I think there's
collateral damage.
Yeah, you think you're not going to do damage because you don't want to give them a penny, but you're going to do damage by giving them nothing. Like, that's not the legacy you want to build.
Yeah.
And so it's not easy to unwind those scarcity-minded money blueprints from childhood, but it's definitely possible. And usually one of this, if they're married, like one spouse is maybe more reachable.
Yeah.
And that I feel like sometimes we're talking to one or the other, the entrepreneur or the spouse, and trying to get them to just turn their thinking a little bit about. And oftentimes it comes from understanding things better though, actually. If they see like, hey, you could spend this much a month for the rest of your life and you never come close to running out of money. And it's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be so tight. Like maybe I'm treating my family's lifestyle and experience like we were at the very beginning. And I'm not saying blow your money, but enjoy, like you should be enjoying it. And I also am a big proponent of giving while living. And not just waiting for inheritance and trust planning.
But how do you teach that? Like, I know how it was taught to me. It was taught by example. You know, I had a mentor, still one of my best buddies, Todd Peterson. And he just gave every day. And he'd actually he would get cash. He'd have it on him at all times. And he'd micro give.
Interesting.
He'd look for opportunities to pay for somebody's gas or
That's cool.
to do a big tip for a waiter or whatever it was. But then he'd give on the macro too, like big donors to IHC and, the community and different things. But the people that I know that are actually the wealthiest, and definitely wealth is, people, when they think wealth, they think money. But wealth is so much more than money.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You can be very poor spiritually and have a lot of money, or you can be very poor with your relationships. And he's wealthy in most of them.
Time and relationships, generosity, fulfillment, all that. Health.
It's the same thing.
All that comes together.
It all ties together. And that philosophy of give while you're alive. It's been life-changing for me. The amount of joy and gratitude and even humility. That it was today, there was a, same thing, learn this habit from, Todd when I was young, and have developed it where I keep cash on me kind of at all times. And it creates this lens where I'm looking for opportunities, and DoorDash has become like my go-to because it comes to you. These opportunities show up where if somebody shows up and is dropping Chick-fil-A at my house at 7:30, they're hustling. And so it kind of automatically qualifies me that this person is,
you want to reward that kind of person.
They're out of bed and they actually need the money. And so anyway, we get home this morning, and an older gentleman, and order, Chick-fil-A for the kids. We're at the temple, coming home, order some Chick-fil-A, and this guy, he's an older guy, shows up to the house, and it's this decision point of, do I act like I don't see him and then go pick up the Chick-fil-A right after he walks around the corner, which is more convenient because it doesn't take any emotional energy to engage. And it's almost like two little voices, and the one voice says, no, go grab him before he runs off. And let him know, you've got a tip for him. And I engaged the guy, and he's just a good old boy. He's like, I see the deer mounts in your garage. Can I go take a picture? I'm like, yeah, go get it. Pop in, grab $100, go give it to him. Awesome. The response is so beautiful.
Appreciative.
And my day's done. It doesn't matter what happens. I'm walking with this abundant, good energy. You know what I mean? And I'm like, it's for him, but it's for me. And to that whole, what you're describing of give while you're alive.
Giving while living.
What if I didn't get those experiences? How much different of a life would my life be?
It's true.
So much more rich.
And people say it's easy to give when you have lots of money.
It's just a lie, though.
But that's a lie.
No, it's a lie. It's the widow's mite. You know what I mean?
People who were wealthy were generously giving before they had anything. That's what I found.
How do you teach it? Because you're a teacher.
You have to model it,
Yeah.
and you have to help them find experiences and find something that matters to
That
them.
captures them.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to find something that captures them. There's something they care about that if they leaned in on it, they would want to give and support it.
Yeah.
And you have to just help them find what that is.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is for a lot of people, but once you find it and you're like, the way you talk about that, your energy is different. You're excited. You really care about it. This means something different to you. And if you could make an impact, or you could help your kids make an impact together,
Yeah.
what's the experience like if you and your family together talk about what the family cares about, and
Yeah.
kids get involved and they get a little ownership of like, I really, there's a kid that is made fun of at school and this is his special needs condition. And it hurts me to see that kid get made fun of.
Yeah.
I care about that. What if you teach the kids to lean into that? You know, the difference of your family dynamic and how they look at money will forever be impacted by those little moments of conversation and action.
No, that's beautiful. So wealth is created by concentration, maintained by diversification.
Right. Say
somebody's further along in the road.
Yep.
And they've never had somebody that's a wealth manager. They're just an entrepreneur and they've just doubled down on their business. We run into these people all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then it works and they have a big outcome.
Yep.
And now they're just sitting on a pile of cash that's just new. Like, how do you coach that person? Like, how do you connect with that person and say, what got you to this point? You can't go plow all of that back into your business like you've done at this point, you won the game.
Yes.
And it's not that you can't go build another business, but don't keep risking it all. You know what I mean? Like, how do you connect and coach that person?
We had 2 clients, partners who sold a business for 9 figures in 2006. Both deposited the same dollar amount the same day with me. One of them was very coachable and listened to advice. The other one got excited by every shiny toy.
Yeah.
Everything that came across his desk, he said, this is going to work out. I got to put a lot of money into it. And fast forward to 2019, this one client has a significant portfolio that is compounded. He still has invested in lots of private deals and funds and things that have done well, but he kept his base. He was smart and thoughtful. This client had to fire sale his huge custom mansion in Southern California and has no money left in his bank accounts. And so that's an example I use often because they literally paralleled together.
They were the same deposit.
Exact day, same money. They built a business together. And one of them is enjoying an incredible lifestyle of abundance and opportunity. And the other one is stressed and regretful.
Wow.
And I think one of the things...
It truly is a cautionary tale.
It's a big cautionary tale. And it was right in our face. Like we talked to both of them and told them the same advice. And it's like, this person just thinking, I think sometimes you think because you were really good at your business that you're really good at everything. You know, like there are some doctors out there because they're a really good surgeon. They think they know everything about everything. And I think there's humility in saying, I know this really well. I earned a lot of money building this really well.
Yeah.
But I need to find experts that know lots of other things very well.
Yeah.
Whether it's tax or investing or private deals or wealth management or estate and family planning, like setting up my next business. So my third book, Beyond the Money, is about that whole thing of what to do once you've got a big chunk of money. Like how to scale the next mountain, but don't go all the way back down and do it exactly the same.
Don't risk everything.
Yeah, you don't need to do it exactly the same way.
Yeah. But that's really hard for people.
It is.
You know, and if you're coachable and teachable, you can go learn new skills.
Correct.
But sometimes like the exact thing that got you to where you're going to be isn't the right move for the next stage of the journey.
That's what we say. What got you here won't get you there.
Or it might, but you almost got to like go back to where you started with that. I have no money.
Yeah.
Let's get scrappy and kind of like put it in a box and put this over here so that you don't mix the two, that this one can't sink the ship, you know, and you just see it too much where you're like, boom and bust, had it, lost it, and didn't.
And some of them, it's because they're more comfortable being. They think you have to be broke to be scrappy.
Yeah.
And so they think they've got to somehow get rid of all that money.
It's
and
like
start
this
over.
weird psychological thing where you're almost
psychology.
like self-sabotaging.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like you're almost
Correct.
like blowing it.
Yep.
Because you don't feel comfortable having it.
You feel like, I don't want to rest and relax. I'm a type A go-getter. So
Yeah.
therefore, somehow this needs to be away from me and I
Yeah.
have to start all over.
Yeah. So you've written 5 books. Talk about them, just kind of why you wrote them. Because I think, one, people don't read books much anymore.
Yeah.
Like they consume content different.
Yep.
But also, like, anytime you write a book, it's because there's a problem. And you want to dive into like a really well thought out solution to the problem. It's got to be people are asking you and asking you and
Correct.
asking you, and you actually take the time to articulate it.
Yep.
So that you can deliver it in a comprehensive way. So talk about the 5 books.
Okay.
And like the why for each one.
Book 1, Stress-Free Money. That's about money mindsets. I wrote it because it seems like stress is a killer, and stress commonly is attributed to financial stuff. Like people get divorced most commonly, not because of infidelity, because of money problems. So I wrote that book to say, here are 7 obstacles that people run into, no matter where they are on the journey, that prevent them from having that financial freedom and a stress-free approach to their money. Book 2 is Smart Not Spoiled. That's about how to teach kids what they need to learn about money to be successful before they graduate high school. Although college kids, I found, enjoy it still, but that was because I was getting so many questions about how I've approached money differently in our family.
Yeah.
And it was like, they just need a guidebook. They don't teach money in schools. It's not being taught. Parents feel inadequate on how to teach kids about money. And I don't want my kids being spoiled just because they have a different lifestyle. So,
of course.
So that's that book. The 3rd book is Beyond the Money. That's for once you've already made it, you've had a big exit, you have lots of money. What do you do now as an entrepreneur? Like from the people and the superstars who have already done it, gathering lots of stories and experiences and advice to say, now that you've got lots of money, you're beyond that. You're not worried about paying bills. What do you do next? Book 4 is Fit for Wealth. That's because it's about health and fitness and money going together. The same principles to become healthy are the same principles to become wealthy.
Yeah. And
I've just found a pattern that most of my very successful clients also had good health.
How profound is that?
So that book,
I've actually never heard that articulated.
I think you would like that book.
The same.
Yeah. Same principles
for building a healthy body are the same
principles
actual,
for getting wealthy.
And as you go, it's so common sense when you say it. Like it's consistency.
Yep.
It's doing something every day.
Yep.
It's compounding over time.
Over time, it's accountability.
Yeah.
It's coaching.
Wow.
It's support. It's discipline, not motivation.
Oh, that lights me up. I've actually like literally never heard.
If I haven't sent you all the books, we need to send them right to you.
I'm gonna go read them, dude. All this stuff is just you know.
The last book is Wealth Wired Differently. That came out this month. Wealth Wired Differently is, I'm not going to say it's my favorite. It's the newest one, but man, I'm really excited about it because entrepreneurs are wired differently. They just think differently. They have a different DNA than the rest of the world. The money advice industry is very rigid. You got to fit in a box. They have rules of thumb. There's a disconnect. There's a language barrier between money people and entrepreneurs. And I've heard that from entrepreneurs forever. And I finally was just like, I've got to crack that code on bridging the gap between money people and entrepreneurs. And what I realized from interviewing so many people was that you can't get great advice from someone who doesn't understand you at all because they've never been in your shoes.
Yeah.
So like we both have 5 kids. I'm not taking parenting advice from someone who has no kids.
Yeah.
I'm just not. Like you think you've read about being a parent, but you don't know. You don't have kids.
Well,
right?
What's wild about you, and again, we haven't known each other. We've known each other in a peripheral way, but haven't known each other for a long time. But what's wild about you, and we work with a lot of RIAs, you know, you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And most wealth managers
are not.
They come up through a program and there's a system and you kind of paint by numbers, which isn't bad. You know, the great career, and, you know, a lot of them do a great job. Some of them not so great. But what's crazy about you is you're actually living these principles. Like you're not speaking language that, you know, is hypothetical.
Correct.
With Pacific, like you've built that from the ground up. And even at, you know, before that, that's an extremely entrepreneurial journey. Right. You either feast or famine. You either make it or you don't. And it's kind of on you. You have resources.
Correct.
But you're the one who goes and creates it. And so I think it's fun, and you have some unique insight because you do have the story, you know, of two founders that exited a business that were entrepreneurs that made different decisions on the back end. And this is what we learned. And you can tell that in parable form in a way that maybe would hit different. You know what I mean? I think about Jesus, and I think, like, how does Jesus teach? Teaches in simple stories. And I don't think I'll ever forget the story of 2006, two founders, nine-figure exit. One of them, you know, did things a certain way. The other one didn't. And 10 years later,
lost it.
The outcomes are way different. And they didn't have to be. You know what I mean? Like those are cautionary tales of, like, don't go make the same mistakes that other people have made. Like go be smart, go learn, you know?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're firing me up. I've loved kind of every aspect of this conversation. The one we didn't touch, that I'd love to hear your thoughts. For me, it all ties together. Is how does faith and how does spirituality and how does God fit in the whole picture for you and your family?
It gives us the purpose behind what we do. And for me, having a platform, I'm not some kind of a famous person, but even just the small audience that I have, I feel like I can promote the things that God wants me to promote in a way that people will receive it no matter their background. You know, I get so many messages on LinkedIn from people who say, I really appreciated the fact that you said something about your marriage or your family, or that you said that we don't need to be sacrificing our family relationships, or that you're willing to post about something faith-driven on Easter and you're not hiding or only talking about wealth and money all the time. And so for me, I just want to use any opportunity I have, the audience, the resources, the connections, to do good things, because, you know, my parents and grandparents really taught me where much is given, much is required. And I felt as a kid, somehow, some way, like I knew as a little kid that I wouldn't have a ton of the hard trials that I saw some people have. This is really, probably sounds a little odd to share this, but I felt from a very young age, your challenge is going to be how to deal with having a lot.
You just always knew that.
As a little kid, it was weird. And I remember seeing a leader at church who was very successful, had a lot, and was so giving. Like, I remember he took our volleyball team out, and with all the parents, the siblings, and the players after a match one night, and paid for everyone's dinner. And I was like 15, and I thought, man, like, just a little thought in my head, like, you need to do stuff like that when you grow up. And I was like, okay. I just had these little thoughts all the time growing up, like, your test is not going to be the same as a lot of these tests and trials you see, but be responsible, be a good steward, bless other people. And as you continue to do that, you'll continue to be blessed, and your family will have great opportunities to influence for good.
But there's always been kind of a belief. There's always been like, hey, there is a God.
Oh,
you know,
100%.
That's always kind of been an
never
anchor.
Doubted. No.
But then it's obviously like influenced, decisions, who you marry,
people I hire,
where you live, people you hire,
everything.
values,
yes.
Are you stepping out on your wife? Are you faithful? Like, a lot of this stuff, like, drives it, and I'm interested in anybody that I talk to. The reason faith is something that I bring up. It's not about religion, but it's about what drives decisions.
Right.
You know what I mean? And what's the purpose or the meaning? Like, what gives you meaning in life? Like when you're on your deathbed and you're looking back, what's going to make you proud or make you sad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's relationships. I think it's relationships. And it's the faith part aspect. I mean, especially for entrepreneurs, which is my audience, everything you do requires faith in the future. Investing requires faith in the future.
Yeah.
If you don't believe the future will be better than the past, you don't become an investor. You keep your money doing nothing.
Yeah.
So, and to me, investing is an act of faith.
Wow.
Even financially.
I freaking love that.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever said that, Casey.
You're just pulling the gold
but
today.
Investing is an act of faith.
Taking notes.
Because you have to believe that things will be better, and you're putting your money in a place with hope and confidence, but without knowing that it's going to happen. And entrepreneurship is the same thing. I'm starting something from scratch with no guarantee of success, with the faith that we'll figure it out and that people will actually reward us by hiring us.
Yeah.
And so to me, everything I'm doing has so much uncertainty, and it requires a lot of faith, and it requires good people. And so the values aspect of where people come from matters
a lot to you. So I've never asked this question, and I'm going to start asking it. How does fear factor? Because I know fear, just like your example of the girl on the cliff.
Yep.
My experience with fear is that most of the great music that should ever be written, or the great lives that should be lived, don't get lived. And fear is the catalyst.
Fear holds a lot of people back.
One, how do you manage fear? I think anybody looking at you from the outside in would be like, Chad just doesn't experience it. He's fearless. and I think that's got to be false.
Yeah.
But then the second, how do you manage through it? And then how do you coach people to manage through it like you did with that girl?
So for my own self, I felt fear and uncertainty and doubt many, many times. And I think the quote or the story or the analogy that really resonates is that fear causes you to wet your pants, and courage is going forward with wet pants.
Yeah.
And so there's many times I can look back and say, I was nervous and I went forward with wet pants.
Yeah.
I just did it anyway.
Yeah.
And it worked out. And if you do that enough times, like, confidence doesn't come from believing in yourself. Confidence comes from taking action when you're a little bit nervous. And so my confidence has risen because over time I've stepped into that fear, and then something positive happened.
Start getting knowledge.
You're like, I can do
belief
this. This is
like,
going to work.
This is just what I do.
This is what I do. I'm not afraid of this. Like, I'll be honest. Randy Garn reached out to me recently and said, "Hey, Tony Robbins is starting a private, brand new mastermind group, limited to 50 couples. It's a significant financial commitment. You got to go through a very serious application process. Even though you're referred, you got to meet with his board and do all this stuff." And for a moment I was like, why is he inviting me? The names he's listing that are probably joining and the things they've done, I'm like, I don't belong in that group. That's way above my level. And then I'm like, but it sounds exciting and it sounds like a challenge. So why don't I try? And so I'm on the board, and before the board interview on this panel on Zoom, and I'm like, taking a deep breath, like, here we go. And it went awesome. And I was just authentically myself. And I was like, I'm just going to be myself. And if they want me in the group, then I'm all in. And if not, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
And I got off the Zoom and I'm like, whatever happens, they said there's a lot of people who they invited, who really want to be part of this special group, who just weren't quite a fit. And they had to tell them, thank you, but it's not going to work out. And so I just prepared myself. I'm like, look, we'll see what happens. And it wasn't 5 minutes after that Zoom call board interview that I got an email that said, welcome to the group.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, this is the stuff that as a kid, I was listening to Tony Robbins stuff, and to think that my wife and I.
No, he's my guy. He's my guy for sure. When I think about, people that have affected my life, he's definitely, and there's, countless people that could say the same thing. It's just what he does.
Yeah.
But I think the philosophy that he has and the way that he attacks the world and the energy and the way he thinks about, service and contribution and building wealth, it's a very holistic mastery view.
100%.
which is it's just completely in line with who I am. So the opportunity that you have to go dive deeper, that's kind of one that when you get it, you just say yes and you go figure it out. And so that's so exciting for you guys. And Randy's, good buddy of mine, and he's such a rock star.
He's awesome.
And I know he's been doing that for a long time.
Yep.
Oh, it's so cool. Well, brother, this has been an absolute pleasure. It's been more than I anticipated. And I just think the substance that you bring to the table, you're a force for good and a force for God in the world. And I can't wait to, cheer for you louder.
Thank you.
Now that I know a piece of your story, and, anyway, I can't wait to see the dent that you go make in the world. Because I think, just from sitting here listening, it feels like your best work is in the future and it's not in the past.
I believe it. Thank you.
Your biggest contribution is coming. So anyway, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Casey. Appreciate it.